News Radio 700 WLW.
Rock, I'm sure everybody's seen these ads, or you've seen certainly a print ad for the Winnie the Pooh Kills Everybody movie.
Yeah, and as I said, it's really strange because Winnie the Pooh has always been like the most wholesome character out there, and then all of a sudden people are seeing ads for a movie called Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, a new movie that's out. And of course the Winnie the Pooh stories were first published in 1926, but this is the first time in history, Ed, that Winnie the Pooh has been a mass murderer, serial killer person. How is this possible?
Well, that's what you and I were talking about this, and from, of course, A.A. Milne's beloved Winnie the Pooh, Eeyore, Piglet, the whole crew's in this thing.
Yeah.
And but you know what? How does this work as far as copyright goes? How did the estate of Milne let this get to this stage? Right. And because you would think that they'd be kind of protective of the Pooh name.
It's the golden goose right there, the golden bear.
Here's our guest, and we love talking to this guy, the patent professor. He is a patent attorney, and he's always great to be on the show. John Rizvi, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Always a pleasure to be here. I wish it was for a less disturbing movie, but...
Right. Well, hey, but John, let's cut right to the chase here. How does stuff like this happen? Because you would think that that estate would be very protective of this brand.
Yeah, of course, and you said it right. There's an incredible amount of money on the line, but the estate is helpless once a copyright expires. And a lot of people are surprised to learn that because you fall in love with these characters, and when they go into the public domain, anybody can do anything with them. Like there's no longer any exclusive rights that anyone has to in this case Winnie the Pooh or any of the characters because the copyright's expired.
Interesting. Now it's funny because as we were wondering about this topic and whatnot, I have an author friend, and he writes like science fiction novels, and he publishes them on Amazon, and he's successful. But I looked on his site or on his Amazon thing, and he produces a Dracula book, like Bram Stoker's Dracula. And is this the same thing? Like, because Dracula has entered the public domain, he can now, sell that book and make money off it, owning it himself.
Yes, absolutely. And you say the same thing, although I don't know, like Dracula doesn't, I don't know if they have a huge following of people that have fallen in love with them, and it's not a childhood right. Nursery rhyme type thing. But like, to use a similar example, I don't want a spoiler alert on this movie, but say in Sesame Street, when that copyright expires, Big Bird and Snuffleupagus could conspire to kill Oscar the Grouch and then cook and eat him and go on a carnivorous rage.
A killing spree.
And a killing spree. And, this could happen all on Sesame Street, and it would. Of course, it's hurtful. It's it bothers people. Like, how can they do this? How can Oscar and how can Big Bird and stuff? But the copyright's expired. There's no longer any way to protect that, and that's the worry here.
Right. Well, and so Milne's family, who came up with the whole Winnie the Pooh thing, after the copyright runs out, so they no longer receive money for the licensing or name, image, like all that, right? Does that go out the window?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the one twist is, under copyright law, there is derivative works. So anybody that licenses the original and builds upon it, that derivative work is protected. And that's where, for example, Disney has taken Winnie the Pooh, and those copyrights are still in existence. So what Disney did, in the original Winnie the Pooh had no clothing, right? So, and there was no Tigger in the original. So Disney added some of their own features. They have that classic red T-shirt. They have the changing the spelling of honey, and have Winnie the Pooh saying "oh bother," and so these are like Disney-fied versions. So the director of this film is very careful to only use the Winnie the Pooh aspects that were in the original expired copyright. So so it's not
Disney could come back on them if you did something like the T-shirt, like you're saying, or the honey spelling and stuff like that. Then Disney could get involved.
100%, yeah. So if they infringe the derivative work, that what Disney, those copyrights are still in effect, but the original is part of the public domain. So if you watch the trailer to the film, the trailer's out there. I mean, you can see it doesn't look like the Disney-fied Winnie the Pooh, but it's clear to anybody that's watching, and it's the title of the movie is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So. It's clear it's Winnie the Pooh. It's clear that Piglet is Piglet. Eeyore is Eeyore, but they don't have that. They're very careful to avoid infringement of the derivative work.
So, and again, according to your literature here, the rule is the life of the author plus 75 years or 95 years total. So. If Milne released this book 95 years ago, that expires. Boom, it's all fair game. Now, let me ask you this. So what about, obviously this is a storybook, but what about a figure like Elvis? Is there ever a point where Elvis's name and that trademark runs out? Is it the same?
So it's an important distinction you point out that so the trademark rights are different. The trademarks can be renewed. And they don't necessarily expire as long as, the trademark, for example, to Coca-Cola is over 100 years old. So trademarks can go on. So to the effect that there's consumer confusion, that you're talking about a different aspect of law. But copyrights are a concern because there's a lot of big name copyrights coming expired in the next couple years. You've got Bambi, you've got Peter Pan. In the next year or so.
You think about that, man.
The sick mind of 2023 is going to go rampage on Bambi and all these other characters.
Well, and one of the things you point out, John, is that a lot of the movies that people are familiar with from the 80s and 90s, say like Clueless and old movies, those are based on classic stories that obviously have been brought up to date. But, it's different than, Alicia Silverstone did go on a killing spree in Clueless. She was based on some classic character of Jane Austen or whoever the hell. But when you take a character and have them go on a killing spree, think of the stuff they could do with Peter Pan. Ain't going to say anything.
No.
But let me ask 100%. Let me ask you, John, as a dad, how does this? What do you think about this? I'm sure how many do you have young children?
I do. I'm clearly not in favor. I understand the law, and I understand it's not that there's nothing that can be done. But and I'm very careful now in terms of a spoiler alert. But in another interview, I kind of revealed a little bit more of the story that I wanted. And afterwards, I'm like, well, I think I did the world a favor because those poor parents or anyone that has no idea what's going on in Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And they go and see this. That's my public service announcement was like, I got my couple minutes. I'm like, hey guys, guess what happens? And it's very disturbing. And I only did it by example, like using Sesame Street as an example. But just imagine any movie with classic characters that you love. Batman and Robin. Like, what happens if sometimes after the copyright's expired, they turn against one another. Like any of these stories can take on a completely different, Rudolph. Like these things, where does it end? Like, what if Rudolph goes carnivorous or whatever, like rogue, and starts slashing all of the other reindeer? Like this stuff is hurtful.
Hey, think about Rudolph has every right in the world to turn on those guys. Everybody treats him like crap. Even Santa treats him like crap. Then when they need him, they're like, oh, hey, Rudolph, my bad.
We need you, buddy.
We need you, buddy. Come on.
Really?
Hey, pat you on the back and, hey, we'll put you first in line. No, Use that nose and start burning people, baby.
You got it. Now, John, has there ever been an effort to raise the limit on this, right? It's 95 years. Has there ever been an effort where people get together and say, hey, look, can we make this? Or is there a way we can kind of, finagle things a little bit so a copyright doesn't wear out, and thus Winnie the Pooh and Bambi and Peter Pan, etc., are saved from dirty deeds.
Yeah, so this is my prediction. I mean, remember, under the U.S. Constitution, copyright law is supposed to be a limited right for authors and inventors, like intellectual property. It's supposed to be limited in time. The original copyright was for 28 years after the author's death. It then changed. It kept going up. At one point, even more so. But I think I would venture that 95 years is a long time. And there's some benefit to having intellectual property expire, at least for patents and trademarks, patents and copyrights, to allow for innovation, to allow for new ideas to come forward. Disney has lobbied quite a bit for the expansion of copyright, and I think they've been under fire lately for even trying to get beyond 95 years. But my prediction is it's not going to be extended. And that's why the worry with Bambi, Peter Pan, and a lot of these other, there's billions of dollars in licensing and revenues that are potentially at stake. So Disney has an interest in expanding copyright protection beyond 95 years. I don't think it's going to happen.
All right, with that, John Rizvi, always a pleasure. He is the patent professor. You can check him out at thepatentprofessor.com. John, always a pleasure and a home run.
Same here. Thank you.